This isn't standard practice anymore, but standard practice used to be to put turnbuckles on the top of your arbors so that you could do the fine-tuning leveling of your batten. The challenge is, in order to do that, you have to be all the way up there at the top of the grid adjusting the turnbuckles while a crew is down here on stage checking level. So that takes a crew of 3 or 4 people, and it requires the crew up top to adjust the turnbuckles and communicate the changes back and forth with the crew on the stage. The challenge here is it's not easy to identify which one of these turnbuckles runs to which of your lift lines. You have to have a second person on the grid pointing out which one and tracing and confirming so you're not adjusting the wrong one. If you've got some consistency of your install, you might have them placed in certain grooves of your head block, but chances are they are all over the place and there's no consistency. Another option is to put your turnbuckle at the batten, and then you can adjust the turnbuckle and get it level that way. I'm not a big fan of the big giant turnbuckle here because that's another foot to 14 inches that is wasted fly space that's going to limit the upper limit travel of my line set. You can also do it with a trim chain method, which is a piece of 1/4-inch chain secured into your swage, wrapped around the batten, and then attached with a shackle. That allows for quick and easy changing of going up and down one link at a time. Unfortunately, this is less accurate. Each link is about an inch-long link, but because we've got 2 lengths of chain coming up, each link is going to adjust you about a 1/2 inch. It's more or less that much, but it can sometimes vary a little bit. It's not a real precise adjustment. The turnbuckle, you can get a much more precise position. You can see this one's adjusted 1 link up, and that will make this batten level. We just redid this one this summer. This one is adjusted 2 links up, and that is not the right mousing technique for the pin. All right, I needed to double check my crew's work. The pin is supposed to be moused to the shackle, not moused to its point of connection. The whole idea here is you're preventing the pin from moving. Yes, this will do it, but it can also put undue stress on that safety wire, causing it to break. We don't want the safety wire to actually be any load-bearing thing at all. So in order to level your battens, we just need to adjust whatever point has the adjustability, in this case, the trim chain, in this case, the turnbuckle, or in the case of the older systems, the turnbuckle at the arbor. In the days of hemp rigging, when we were tying to the batten by the clove hitch and 2 half hitches, you could do your leveling by just undoing your clove hitch, retying it, leveling your batten, and tying it back up. And theoretically, if I've got a line set with aircraft cable that is clove hitched here, I could do that. The problem is the clove hitch starts to put memory into the aircraft cable, and it's real hard to do some fine-tune adjustments after you've locked it in and put it into one place. Hence the turnbuckles on the other end. But before you level this, you need to make sure your lift lines are completely perpendicular to the stage and perpendicular to your loft blocks. We had a company come in 2018 and re-rig 10 of our line sets. It was just going to be more expedient and efficient to have professionals come in and do it in 3 days, as opposed to have me do it with a crew and take a 1.5 days per line set. They didn't position the lift lines 100% vertical to the stage. They just sort of rough guesstimated them here from the ground and said, oh, it looks kind of vertical. But then when we flew it up to the grid, you could see that most of the lift lines, rather than being completely vertical, were off by anywhere from 15 degrees to 30 degrees. And that's way too extreme of an angle. What I've been doing to get my lift lines positioned on my batten correctly is I've been going to the grid and measuring from cable drop to cable drop and getting myself a sight measurement at the grid between the 2 loft blocks. Not just measuring center of the loft block to center of the loft block. There may be different designs and things, but exactly the position of where that cable drops to the same position on the next cable drop. And then I'm able to position these lift lines in relation to each other so that these measurements on the ground match those measurements on the grid, and then it will keep that angle consistent all the way up to the grid. And you really need that to be in place before you do your leveling. If you have any of those off at all, your leveling is going to be a little bit hard to manage, and it's going to have some variations that are going to introduce themselves that you will have to consistently fight. So you want your lift lines to be vertical, perpendicular to the ground, perpendicular to the grid. There often is a little bit of flex in the lift lines. And that is because on these longer lines, 4, 5, and 6 on my stage, there's a longer distance to get all the way to the head block. And that cable is unsupported 50, 60, up to 70 feet sometimes. And even with sag bars, it's still going to have some weight and sag in between the sag bars, and that's going to cause some little bit of lift and variation on your line set, especially for lines 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 if you have those longer lines. So when I'm doing my measurements, what I'm doing is I'm actually applying a consistent force on each of them to try to bring them down into a position, and I'm leveling to the stage floor. I'm not leveling to earth. I'm not putting a bullet level or a carpenter's level on the batten and leveling the carpenter's level. I'm trying to get the distance from here to the stage floor to be consistent across the entire length of the batten. That's my goal. So on these ones over here, I'll apply a little bit of pressure, but on the far ones out there, I'm gonna have to apply more pressure. See, as we move here, this has got a little bit more flex, and this one's got a lot more flex. Now, it's got a lot less flex than if it was an unloaded batten. It's got my teaser on it, so that's helping to bring the weight and distribute the weight across the whole batten and make a nice uniform distributed load. But when I'm measuring my level, I need to put pressure down on this and bring that line tight so that I get a consistent measurement from here to the floor. Now, I may not always have a load over here that is going to compensate for that and bring it into full tension. So if I am installing a lighter weight scenery and I need to bring this into level and it's still flexing that much, I might throw a sandbag on here just to help to level the batten, just to keep my scenery level as needed. This is a border. It probably doesn't matter if there's a little bit of a lift off on this offstage line. That's not going to be seen except for someone who has a real acuity to that type of minutia. But on my leg, it's a little more important. So if my leg isn't applying enough downward force to get my leg level, I may have to throw a sandbag on here to help do that. But I'd rather have my battens level under a uniformly distributed load than to have it be level unloaded, and then when I put load on it, it drips down and now my scenery isn't level to the ground. You'll see on lines 1 and 2, there's a lot less flex and a lot less bow because there's not that long run of cable going from this lift line to the head block, causing it to sag. Same here. Real short run there. Remember these end positions, this one and the far one, lift lines number 1 and lift lines number 6 in my theater, they are each carrying less than 10% of the load of the batten and less than 10% of the load of all of the scenery. So even with a uniformly distributed load, even with this teaser that weighs about 100 pounds, I'm still not putting enough weight on that far line to take all that slack out that's running 50, 60, 70 feet across stage. So what I do to check level, and some maintenance logs recommend that you do this annually, re-level all your battens on an annual basis, is I'll fly it all the way in as far as it'll go. I'll take a straight edge that has some measurements, and I will come here and I'll look at this, and it looks like we are 33 3/4. I am going to apply a little bit of force on here to take off any slack and double check that measurement. Then I'm going to try out my other positions. And I'm going to apply the same force. It doesn't help to have 2 or 3 people applying different levels of force on each position. You want to have the same person applying the same amount of force on each of the line sets so you get some sort of consistency of measurement. And remember that as I go farther away, stage left in my theater, it's going to be a little bit more flex as that cable that sags is brought into tension. So 33 3/4. 33 3/4, it's more about 7/8. We only have about a ½ an inch of variation, so that's as close as we're going to get with the chain method. 33 and about 7/8. Also 33 and about 7/8. So this is where I have to put a little force down. Right now with no force, I'm at 34 1/2, but when I put the force down, I am at about 34. And the last one here, I'm going to start at 36. But when I pull the tension out, I am at 33 and about 3/4. So I'll do that. I'll measure all my line sets. I'll check everything. This one says it probably could go down 1 link. I could adjust it down 1 link, but then I will go and I'll measure and check all of them, because you adjust one it can have some ripple effects on the neighboring sides. So you go back and forth until you get them all right, and then you're happy with everything. And that's how I level my line sets. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time with more technical theater content.